War broke out in Europe in September 1939, and it seemed the Mediterranean theatre would remain a quiet backwater, and Gibraltar would serve as a useful coaling station and safe convoy assembly point. Franco's Spain, recently emerged from civil war, was hamstrung by its dependence on the United States for grain. And this arrangement, despite Hitler's best efforts, ensured Spain's neutrality throughout the war. France collapsed in June 1940, and Mussolini took the opportunity and leapt on the Nazi bandwagon, dramatically altering the perception and the balance of power in the Mediterranean. The now Vichy French fleet became an unknown quantity, and the powerful Italian navy could dominate the centre of the Mediterranean, menacing Malta and making supply of the Egypt garrison more complicated. Gibraltar was cast into the spotlight. Its strategic position was critical to the British war effort. Force H was created and based at Gibraltar under the command of Vice Admiral Sir James Somerville, whose flag flew from the ill-fated battlecruiser Hood. One of its first actions was to deal with Churchill's concerns over the Vichy French fleet based at Mers el-Kabir in Algeria. Somerville reluctantly set about his task, and after offering the French Admiral Jean Soult terms, which were declined, he ordered his force to open fire. The result saw the loss of many French ships and lives, and embittered Anglo-French relations for years to come. There were also unfortunate side effects for Gibraltar. The evacuees, who'd been in French camps in Morocco, were deported and returned to Gibraltar. But the Gibraltarian families again found themselves aboard ship, their destinations as far-flung as London, Northern Ireland, Madeira and Jamaica. Gibraltar was bombed for the first time in the war, not by the Axis, but by the Vichy French Air Force. The raid wasn't undertaken with great conviction by the French airmen, reluctant to attack their former allies, who were still fighting their former enemies. On the Rock, work moved apace in improving the defences. Franco could yet bow to German pressure and allow an army to travel through Spain for an assault. Hitler already had plans in place for the capture of Gibraltar, codenamed Operation Felix. The basic defensive strategy was to move forces into the Rock, immune from bombing and shelling, and continue the resistance from there. The Royal Engineers expanded the already extensive network of tunnels inside the Rock, the intention being to allow an army within to be self-sufficient in food, water, ammunition for many months. At sea, Somerville continued to harass the Italians when the opportunity presented. More importantly, his fleet provided escort for convoys supplying Malta, astride the Axis convoy routes to North Africa, where campaign after campaign saw the balance of power swing from one side to the other, and where defeat could lead the Axis powers to the oil wells of the Middle East. Gibraltar came under repeated attack from Italian bombers throughout this period. Occasionally, the Italian Navy made its presence felt using midget submarines launched from a mother submarine, and later covertly operating out of an abandoned hulk beached in Algeciras port, specially converted to let these menacers leave unobserved through a hole in its hull. An idea which Ian Fleming, then present on the Rock, later adapted and used in one of his James Bond fictions. These manned torpedoes cut through the anti-submarine netting, entered the harbour and tried placing explosive charges under the hull of any vessel in port. They then escaped to the Spanish mainland. Measures were taken to stop them. Charges were regularly detonated in the harbour, and their concussions hopefully killing any submerged divers. At the end of 1941, the balance of power shifted dramatically in favour of the Allies, with the entry of the United States into the war. In 1942, the British and Americans planned the opening of a second front against the Axis. An offensive in North Africa, through Vichy French territory and on into Italy, was a real possibility. The soft underbelly of Europe, as Winston Churchill described it. Gibraltar provided an ideal base from which to support such an operation, but further improvements to its infrastructure were needed. They had to increase the length of the runway so bomber aircraft could use it. Bombers and fighters operating from here would be vital in supporting and protecting the proposed Allied landings and the subsequent advance. So in order to lengthen the runway, rock was brought from where tunnelling continued. More was quarried from the north face and the land was reclaimed from the bay. In the weeks before Operation Torch, the code name given to the intended North African landings, over 400 aircraft were based at Gibraltar's airfield. All available space was given over to the storage of fuel, ordnance and ammunition. Eisenhower, Commander-in-Chief of the operation, arrived on the 5th of November and set up offices in the maritime headquarters deep within the rock. He said, "Never in my wildest dreams in West Point days did I ever think that someday I, an American general, would ever command a force from the British fortress of Gibraltar." On the night of the 7th and the 8th of November, the landing started. The campaign was successful, and within a year, Italy was out of the war and the Mediterranean in Allied hands. After that, Gibraltar became a staging post for the deployment of strategic assets to the Middle and Far East. The war continued for a further 2.5 years after the Torch landings, with many of the bitterest fighting yet to come. But Gibraltar had played a vital role in keeping Britain in the war and greatly contributed to the ultimate Allied victory.
Well, the significant thing about this was, after having the GDF been in several batteries, 2 gun sites normally, we at long last amalgamated with the heavy coast gunners, GDF of course, and the heavier cat gunners, and they formed this 4-gun battery, of which we were very proud, you see.
Yeah.
Also the fact that the battery was entirely manned by Gibraltarians,
Right.
both the officers and the men.
Right.
So that was, we all felt very happy.
And this was right at the start of the war?
No,
or
this was in 1942.
42,
The war
right.
had been going on for some time.
Yeah.
But in 42, the brigadier decided, and the thing was that he very politely, when he introduced the subject, said, "You are having one of the targets of Gibraltar," and everybody was rather scared, meaning the dockyard.
Yes.
Now, again, we were lucky there because, you see, HMS Maidstone, which was the submarine mothership, had 8 magnificent guns.
Right.
So apparently the plan was that with the 8 guns and our 4 guns, we could hold our own with the dockyard.
Right.
But having said that, everybody was thinking, if they come for the dockyard, we've had it.
Yes.
But still, you know, but that is, on the other hand, we're all happy to be a battery.
Of course.
And very proud to have a Gibraltar battery.
Now, before we go to where the guns were, this is where the officers slept.
Well, this magnificent building,
Yeah.
where the gentleman was the officers' mess.
Right. That one just there.
And the officers up there normally slept down here.
You're right.
Now, I remember on one occasion we had a smoke screen. And, of course, the men, with the smoke, you couldn't see a thing.
Right.
But they could work the way through, and they pinched a certain officer's bottle of gin, you see. And when the exercise was over and the smoke cleared, this officer was, in an uncertain manner, letting it known to the world that his bottle of gin had disappeared.
Oh,
and he'd crucify if he found the fellow who'd done it, you
Oh,
see.
dear.
But it was tremendous. I mean, that was the spirit of the time.
Oh, definitely. I mean, lots of funny stories to tell,
exactly.
no doubt.
Oh, yes, some can't be told.
Now, what about in this building?
That was our canteen,
Right.
other ranks canteen. And the top bit wasn't there then, you see.
Right.
That was used on Sunday mornings to what we called debugging.
Debugging.
our biscuits. We didn't have mattresses, we had biscuits. And we had fun incidences. You see, on Sundays, the canteen was used as a church.
Right.
And if you came to church, you didn't work for about half an hour.
Yeah.
So it was normally crowded with chaps, eh? And then, of course, you had the chaps upstairs.
Upstairs, of course.
And the language was not quite the sort of thing to be heard. And one sergeant on one occasion bawled at them in no uncertain manner, and it was heard all over the chapel.
I can
But
imagine.
those things, you know, it's a laugh, but it's human.
Exactly. Now, right at the entrance to the battery.
To the battery,
Now,
yes.
what was down there?
Well, down there we had the guard room. That was always manned, day and night.
Yeah.
We had 4 sentries, And the trick there was to be the stickman, and all you had to do was bring the tea up for the fellows under lunch. And we had an NCO and the orderly sergeant, which he'd be the boss of the battery, you know, to see the thing was done properly. And down the stairs to the bottom, we had battery officers and the cookhouse. And that had to be well guarded too, particularly. But, you know, as it so happens, I mean...
Guarded from the men here.
Guarded from the hungry soldiers here. Yes. But there were times when you went over the wall with a rope, and if the odd window was left open, you could sneak in, and it didn't pinch much, a slice of bread or whatever, you know, and that was a great achievement.
Yes, and the odd bar was pulled open.
So, we had a very, most of the guns were very strong. One particular, you'd sort of stretch them a bit, get a smaller fellow through, then he'd knock them back into place. And they never realized it.
Yes.
But,
of course, because provisions were scarce.
Well, rations were scarce. Rations were scarce, and there was one was not in but we stole the right rations, not harming anybody. But it was more of a prank. They're saying, I've got into the cookhouse, notwithstanding the cooks, you see. And we got away with it. So that was that. And when you were punished, you were marched down the steps. You put your bayonet and belt, and the officer, whomever it was on duty, would try you out and give you a sentence, which was either field punishment or staying in so many days, or if it was really serious, they'd send you up to the colonel of the regiment, which was an English gentleman, and he obviously would send you to detention, which was quite a thing.
Now, shall we go to where the guns were?
Indeed.
Yes, we finished then talking about this area. I'm sure there are lots of...
Yes, well, here we...
Just very quickly, this building here.
Well, that building and this doorway here. That was the entrance to the ammunition magazine. And, believe it or not, also the food. Emergency rations were kept there, siege rations. And the entry there was very strict. It was very strictly controlled.
Yes, of course.
I mean, you came in, you came out, they had a look at you, and but there were ways and means of getting in for the odd tin of sardines once in a while. But I'm not giving that away.
And
now, here in this building, normally we had the command post upstairs with all the instruments, and I would say the brainier people of the battery were the instrument numbers, you know? Chaps who could read and write. Well, we could all do, but normally the more intellectual types were quartered there. And all they had to do, climb up the stairs and get to this. And there we always had 24-hour watching a certain area of the sky. We had two chaps with binoculars, one watching one area, and those were there day and night.
Yes, of course. Yes, you know? In case of attack.
At night you heard they would, during the day you saw in the odd just saying so and so, and then and if the flap went on, the bells would ring, and the instrument chaps would climb up the stairs very quickly. And then if it was an unfriendly plane, then the bells would ring, and those were what we call the fighting lines. Then all hell was let loose.
Oh, I can imagine.
And everybody knew exactly where to go.
And there's one funny little story. I don't know if you can tell us.
Well, no, we used to, instead of these bars there, it had barbed wire. And you can do knitting with barbed wire, you know how. And we would creep in occasionally, not trying to blow the place up, just to prove that we could get in and get out. And if you found something you could borrow, such as an odd tin of sardines, you see, you'd probably pick it up, or you would not. It all depends. But one night I was here with a friend, and one was in and the other, and he was here. And the sentry, you see, the gun wasn't here.
What, he was sort of hiding here?
That's right. And the sentry was walking around, and he felt like passing water. And it was winter, and you know, the coat was like that, and his head was like that, and this fellow, unfortunately, just over him, gave him a good shower, and he couldn't say a word, otherwise he'd find him out.
Oh, this is it.
So that's one little anecdote of messing around at night when you shouldn't.
Fabulous.
That was that. Now, the gun was not mounted as it is now. I mean, it was different, and otherwise we could not have done it.
So the four guns were where? then?
4 guns were, see, this gun is mounted in a barbette, which is, it hasn't got merlons, it's just as you, a wall, and the gun just peeps over it.
Yeah.
And here, where the men used to, the detachment used to work, we had 2 barrack rooms.
Right.
On this concrete there, and on the other side, and so many men slept there.
Shall we? So.
Well, here
this
we
is where
had
huts were.
the gun detachment slept on this slab of concrete. There was a square hut,
Right.
and another one on that side. You notice the steps there,
Yeah.
leading to number 4 gun,
Right.
and you notice another lot there,
Yeah.
leading to number 3 gun.
Ah,
you
I see.
So the whole thing was quite well planned.
Yeah.
Then at the end there's a little bridge of wood, a little plank,
Right.
to you know, to make a shortcut to nip across to the other hut if you want to see anyone.
Yeah.
And the huts were about, what, 8 feet high,
Gosh.
and that slept the detachments of the different guns. you see.
Right. And these guns were what? What type of guns?
Well, ours,
Yes.
The-
The 2 that were just up here.
well, we had 4 here. There's a 3 point, well, they were all 3.7, heavy
Anti-aircraft guns.
called heavy anti-aircraft
Right.
guns.
Yes. Heavier.
Anti-aircraft guns. And we had 4 of those guns on the battery, which we shall see now, one of them in a very dilapidated state. And they were protected by 2 Ehrlichen guns. At the beginning, they used to be Bren guns. Then we eventually had the Ehrlichens mounted, which were a lovely piece of kit.
Right.
And
That's it. That was your baby.
Well, that was my toy.
Yes.
I mean, we had that gun clean as a new pin.
Right.
You know, because we had nothing much to do, but that gun was a peach, and we looked after it like nothing on earth.
I can imagine. Right, so let's have a look then at one of the, well, what remains of one of the guns.
And one of the guns which was brought over, it's not one of the guns here, it was
Right.
brought over from England, very kindly sent to us, but unfortunately it is not complete.
Yes. Right. This
Here we-
is what remains, yeah, of one of the guns.
This is what remains of one of the guns, and it's not one of the original guns, but it was kindly sent over to us from England. And, you know, it's a letdown because the gun was much more impressive than this, much higher,
Yeah,
but at least we have a 3.7 gun here,
yeah.
which was a very good gun. We had 4 of these. This was number 3 gun, that was number 4. Number 2 has gone, and number 1 gun pit has gone.
Right. So number 1 was even further.
Now, obviously the gun pit, was completely enclosed with only 2 entrances.
Right.
And then it had on the outside sort of a glasses so that any shrapnel would, we hoped, fly
Yeah.
over the top. And the whole thing was camouflage. Not the gun. The gun was dark green, but the walls were camouflage. And then we had the ammunition bays right round the gun pit. And wherever the gun was pointing, there was always an ammunition rack behind,
Right.
you see? So all you had to do, get your ammo and load your gun.
Now, this was for use against the Vichy Air Force and the Italian
Well,
bombers.
against any plane that cared to come.
And which were the planes that
Normally
did
the
come?
Italians used to come
Italians, yeah.
whenever there was moonlight every month, you know?
Really?
And they flew rather high, which we didn't mind at all. And I wasn't here when the Vichy French came,
Right.
but I hear that they had quite a shindig that day. And they
Yes.
fired for 2 days rather
Really?
heavily.
And obviously the Italian bombers, were any shot down from Gibraltar?
Well, it's very difficult to say. But, you know, you could hear the noise of the engines, and then suddenly they go
Yeah.
sort of firing.
Yeah.
But normally they fell, they must have fallen well away. But at the time, what you're interested in is shooting as many rounds as you can,
Yes.
as quickly as possible.
And what was the feeling like when you knew that
Well-
enemy aircraft was approaching? It must have been buzzing.
First of all, you felt scared. You
Yes.
didn't. And then when you got into the gun pit and the sergeant roared at you, you forgot everything and did
Yeah.
your job. You see?
Yeah.
You didn't feel scared that you funk it, but worried. But once you get cracking, believe you me, you forget everything and you concentrate on your job.
Yeah.
And that is because we were always being drilled. We drilled twice a day in these
Right.
guns. And you did things like robots, you know.
Yes.
But having said
second
that,
nature.
robots that were thinking.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
is
Of
a
course.
hard way to, a difficult thing to say, but it happens.
Yes.
You know, each knew what he had to do, and did it,
Yeah.
and as best he could. I mean, it was also getting rid of your frustration.
Yes.
you know?
Of course.
Pagava il pato, as we normally say. The fellow, he didn't know that, otherwise he would not have come. But chaps worked very, very hard, very, very hard.
Now, shall we go to where your Oerlikon was? This is where you were.
My precious bit of kit.
That's
See,
it.
Being a useless gunner, and on instruments, quite honestly, they never shot, so I wasn't interested. So, as I didn't know what to do, people like me were sent to the machine guns, which were Brent guns at once upon a time.
Right.
And then they sent us these lovely Oerlikons, which we looked after tremendously well because they were a marvelous bit of kit.
Yeah.
And we were on our own.
Now-
We looked after them, we fired when we had to, which we never did in anger.
Right.
And the only time we nearly had a chance, when we had a Junkers flying over, the major, which knew we'd fire even though the thing was intent, came down and said, "Don't shoot until I tell you." So he ruined our war.
Oh.
He ruined our war.
This, again, anti-aircraft machine gun.
Well, it was anti-aircraft. It could also fire out to any little boat that cared to come along. You know?
Right.
This is the southern one. The northern one could cover the new mole
That's
to the
it.
very end. you
Yep.
see?
Yep.
It covered that too.
And your range, obviously, was...
Well, we had, in our case, but other people at the northern one, there was a 9 railing, and the barrel would hit it, they
Right.
couldn't hit the rock.
I see.
Coming to my gun pit.
Your gun pit.
My gun pit.
It's fantastic to stand
Here,
there. Right.
there was a 20mm cannon, which was a marvelous piece of machinery. And 2 of us manned it, Mike Durante and myself. And there's also another chap who's not here with us anymore, Bailey. He was the best shot of the 3, you see. Gunner Bailey was really good. But having said that, the fight was who was going to fire the gun, like little boys, see? Sadly...
You were all teenagers at the time.
Exactly. And, you know, me first. Now, the only thing that remains of the whole setup is the loading tray, which is there. The magazine we put there, give it 60 pounds pressure for the 6 rounds we had. Now, you'll notice these things is where the magazines were. There were steel cabinets. It was mainly a naval gun, and it had steel chests which were waterproof. You had one lot there, and another lot here. So whichever way they're always at hand.
Right. And the wall's also lower, this front wall.
Well, yes, and there's also the main magazine was this one,
Right.
you see, which I nearly forgot about.
Right.
We had the main wall, and now you'll notice the wall is lower there because we could shoot out to sea, see? But mainly our job was to protect from enemy planes, well, or whatever, but mainly planes. On that side, the danger was that you could hit the top of the rock if you're not careful.
Yeah.
But we were very careful, as you can see. And
How did you get the elevation?
well, this was a 3-tiered platform, with 3 steps.
3 steps.
And you'd tie yourself to the gun with sort of braces on your shoulders. If you wanted to depress, you'd climb up the steps, and if you wanted to elevate, you went down the gun pit, and the gun would go up. And then if you wanted to traverse, you just walk around the steps. And it was very quick. You see? And not only that, as I said, it was a marvelous bit of kit. And that was that. We had 2, one guarding the battery south and one overlooking the docks.
Oh, you had 2 in here?
No, we had one here,
here.
one at each end of the battery,
Yes,
you see?
right.
And they guarded the battery. Now, the people down there would often pull our legs. "Oh, you have guns to defend yourselves," this, that, and the other. So one day, the people of the barges there and the men who worked there, they were laughing at us because we had our tin hats and this, that, and the other. And suddenly we shot. And of course, what goes up comes down. And the splinters started coming down. And they were running like hell. Then it was our turn to pull their legs, you see, because they never thought that the bits would come down. They didn't expect it. We shot at a high angle, and that was it.
So Roger Bay was used for what, mainly?
Roger Bay, it's a control of sorts, I don't know what. And we had a radar set down below at Roger Bay, manned by about 10 men, and commanded by Sergeant Pepe Fabri, who's still around today. He's 80-something, or I won't say he's 80 now. But no, that was his command. He came to us from the Royal Signals. He wasn't a gunner at the beginning, and then he became a gunner here, you see. But
and were there guns at Parsons Lodge as well?
There's a Bofors there.
Right.
And then there were machine guns. All those slits you see there were either fighting lights to light up at night or machine gun nests, like we had underneath here, manned by the Somerset Light Infantry.
Right, so the machine gun nests just below.
Just below, and then we had a search thread at the other end and more machine gun nests further down. In fact, there's quite a tunnel complex underneath the battery.
Interesting. And this was accessed how?
Well, when we had, for example, exercises called Plan P, and that meant that those that were not manning guns would be under cover. Right. And they slept there, and that was that.
And this was in case of attack by ships, submarines?
By ships, or attack, I suppose, by Plan Felix, which the Germans intended doing at one stage. I mean, everybody in the garrison, I think, had a hole to climb into, except the poor ack gunners who would have to, those on duty had to stay out.
Yes, of course.
And of course, and I suppose the other gunners as well. But you can't imagine how different things were. No, you felt safe in a way because you had the cover, and you had the provisions to feed there and more or less wash there and survive. And then when the thing was over, you'd come out, I suppose, as we did in exercises, and take a breath of fresh air.
What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of the guns. Only the stuttering rifle's rapid rattle can patter out their hasty orisons. No mockeries now for them, no prayers nor bells, nor any voice of mourning save the choirs, the shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells, and bugles calling for them from sad shires. What candles may be held to speed them all? Not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. The pallor of girls' brows shall be their pall, their flowers the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds.
I was just a gun number, loading the gun and all that, until we were fighting for a high point near Falaise, which was called Mount Pincon, and there was a high ground, and of course, had to be won, so the battle, could be. I mean, say you could see from there. You could see all around you. Right. So.
And a lot of bitter fighting in that particular Falaise gap.
Yes, because I mean, so we were fighting for quite a time, and the German army was encircled. Right. Well, I read later, many men got away for a blunder or whatever, But anyhow, some men got away, but many were killed, and the Germans, for pulling the guns, they used horses, and it was beautiful to see so many horses and men. Because in actual fact, when you see a war film, I have to say, it's nothing like a real thing. Yeah. For a start, one thing that that they cannot portray on a film, is the smell of the dead. Yeah. And there at Falaise, it was bad because we were there for quite a time, and the bodies rotted, and you had to eat your food with the smell, the stench of death, very bad. And while we were in that battle, the gun I was in, the inside of the muzzle brake, that's at the end of the barrel of the gun. Many people think it's a flash eliminator. Well, it's not so. That is a counterweight to balance the gun with the breech
Right, yeah. They're talking about a 25-pounder gun.
25 pounders, yes.
Right.
And the inside was cheap enough. And the gun fitter, he kept telling the battery commander, who was in the observation post, that the gun was getting very dangerous. And he said, look, the way the battle is going on, I can't afford to take any guns out of action. And at the time we were preparing to move. 3 were preparing the quad, because I mean on the roof of the quad, that's where we carried our bedding and the jerry cans of water, things like that.
The quad is
everything's that makes
that you
living.
needed, yeah.
And when we fired, they said we're going to fire 20 guns, 20 rounds at of supercharge, that's to reach the longest range
Yeah.
that was possible. And rest for a quarter of an hour and then fire another 10 rounds. We fired the 20, we rested, and then I loaded, I was loading the gun, I loaded the first shell and set fire, and when the gun fired, I felt something on my back. We were bare, you know, from the waist up. It was very hot.
Yeah.
Still August, you know, very hot. And I'm not going to go into the gory story of it. But anyhow, the chap that was in front of me was killed.
Right.
And if I hadn't gone for the next shell, which was automatic, once the gun fired, and you had to load it again. So I bent down to pick up the shell, and that's when it blew up. Well, the elevation of the gun was at its maximum. So if I had been standing up, my head would have been blown off. There's no question about it. And the chap that fired the gun, he was so shocked that with great effort, you know, they prized his hand from the firing lever.
Yeah.
So he became a casualty as well.
Yeah.
The one that was dead, and the gun there. I was the only survivor. I was the only survivor of the team, you see.
What happened is that I, on my way to Gibraltar, there was some merchant ships, and one of them was carrying what we saw from the destroyer, was carrying lots of people, even young people, and we thought, well, it'd be a passenger boat.
Yeah.
Believe me, when I came to Gibraltar, I met with a neighbor. One neighbor, the name is Ellul, I don't know this. And I asked him, because he worked with the CD in a dockyard. Hey, Ellul, how about my family? You know anything about them? Oh, they left this week. Oh, I said, that's a bloody ship. We were the escort to the Ark Royal.
Right.
The escort to the Ark Royal.
Right. Ah.
Yeah, and it was, we had a captain, a very brave man. He was so brave that it became a bloody nuisance. He always wanted to go to see something or other.
Did you also escort merchant ships?
Oh, yes.
To Malta?
Yeah. To Malta, all merchant ships were escorted by us, because we used to escort the, what's name, Ark Royal,
Yeah.
which job it was to bomb the enemy or fight the enemy fighters.
Right. So the main threat was what? Italian bombers?
Yeah, Italian bombers. Yes, and you know, I always thought that they were very poor fighters, but they weren't. They got in between the ships, but we didn't fire. We couldn't fire because If you fire yourself. But if, like that, they used to keep it.
So they were very clever and they'd sneak between two ships
Right.
and fire. What other threats were there in the sea? The German U-boats, were they a threat as well?
Well, we cannot tell a U-boat because we don't see the U-boat. Yeah. You might feel what they send a message.
Yes.
But nothing else.
Right. So they were difficult to spot, obviously, and to fight.
But there were German plane, Italian plane.
Right.
Yes.
And how important, how vital was it to make sure that Malta was safe from the Axis? How important was it to protect those convoys going to Malta?
Well, because she was a very valuable base.
Yeah.
That means to say that at the center of the Mediterranean, that was a valuable base for ships to refuel, to rest a day or two, and so on.
Yeah. And it supported the Egypt campaign.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And that's it for the. She was mainly there to support the Egyptian campaign.
Right.
That's correct.
So you were in the Mediterranean for how long? A year, 2 years?
I think it was about 9 months or near a year, or 9 months, something like that.
Right. So then did you stay with HMS Faulkner or you went back and you've changed?
No, HMS Faulkner sent me to hospital in account of my ear.
Yes, right.
Having been damaged.
Cuando empezó la guerra, los fuimos allí, nos dieron enseñanza, ¿no? Marchar, porque no, como no sabían nada, a enseñarlo cómo se hacía como militar.
Sí.
Y lo hicieron entonces como militar y eso.
Y
Ahora, cuando yo entramos en el Toby. Y después lo pasaron al Genista. Y del Genista lo pasaron del mismo Toby al Prince Caroline. Un cañón que hay de 6 pulgadas que está mirando para toda España. No sé si usted lo habrá visto. Bueno, un cañón que estaba ahí todo mirando el Prince Caroline de 6 pulgadas. Y en el Toby había 2 de 6 pulgadas. 2 cañones de 6 pulgadas, una aquí y otra aquí, mirando para el estrecho. Y en el Toby también había 2 que estaban mirando como para Punta Carnero, una cosa así. Había 2 así.
y Pepe?
I joined the RANC. The reason being that I had experience in young ambulance. Therefore, I joined the RANC. I was the RANC for 3 months, and then having worked in radio distribution pre-war, I was transferred to signals, and the Royal Signals. And then when Napier Battery decided to bring me a radar, I was transferred. I was then promoted to sergeant, transferred to Napier to man the radar equipment.
Right. So you'd man the radar equipment and then that would be sent to the signals.
From the signals, I was transferred to the heavy attack in Napier to man the radar, which the nickname for the radar was Mighty. And for all the detachment of Mighty time were called the Mighty Boy.
Right. I mean, John, what happened when the war started? All those who were in the GDF, they were split up into...
Yes, there were different elements in the GDF. I mean, you had signals, you had heavy coastal gunners, you had RANC drivers, and you had the original, they always call them the original 50, which were heavy ACAC gunners. Later on, you had even people like the Special Constable who became light ACAC gunners, and they did a part-time job as GDF. But the 50 were the original who actually joined on the day that the war was declared in '39. I became part of that a year later because I was only 17 when I joined.
Yeah.
Which was I joined when they just moved into we moved from Europa to Signal Hill. We started at Signal Hill with 2 guns, which 2 3-inch ACAC guns, ex-Navy from 1914-18 war. And it was a very happy setup. But I was there when we had the French raids, the 2 French raids in when the British Navy bombarded the French fleet in Oran, and as a consequence, they came and decided to bomb Gibraltar with 100 planes on each day, and it was quite an experience. Later on, we joined and became Napier, and Napier was really a composition of a lot of the GDF. The heavy gunners, most of them came along and became ACAP gunners. Pepe, for instance, from Signals came along and did this radar job, and even others, even from RAMC, came along and joined. I can think of Mike Durante, who would like to have seen here today. He joined from RAMC and became a very powerful gunner, I must say.
What memories, qué recuerdos tienen ustedes de los franceses y las bombas que cayeron en Gibraltar?
Bombas muy pocas cayeron, casi todas cayeron en la mar.
¿Pero cayeron algunas en Gibraltar?
Sí, cayeron algunas, pero vamos, cuando yo vivía en la Cuatro Tours, una bomba de arriba, un mosquete, y ahí se quedó. No explotó.
Un bombardeo fuerte nomás que hubo aquí, ese nomás de los franceses. Ya después venía la caramuza que le llaman, venía de vez en cuando, y le llaman, mira si va.
Venían los italianos.
The question is that
venía lo italiano y parece ser, o de esto no sé un chifre, no sé qué, parece ser cuando venía el italiano y los 6 light, lo enfocaba, parecía que oían, tiraban la mano y decían, y oían. Yo no sé si sería de miedo, yo no sé, pero oían, vamos, se quitaban del medio. Y así más verdad que qué.
you see, the thing is that to bomb Gibraltar is very difficult because they had to go from north to south. As you know, from the height. But if they were going from east to west, most of the shells will go in the water.
Yeah.
That did how it happened.
And as a consequence of that, many a time when the Italians got into the range of our guns, which used to be right over La Linea virtually, we were firing, they used to drop their bombs on La Linea.
Yes. Is that because they missed Gibraltar?
They thought they were over Gibraltar. Gibraltar had its lights on. We never put our lights off.
Why?
And because it was the best form of camouflage. You see, these planes used to come from Sardinia across to the Spanish mainland and come all following all the coastline of Spain, which was all lit up. So when they came to us, they came right down, and they didn't quite know whether it was La Linea or whether it was Gibraltar. And many a time they just let off their bombs.
Now, what about the attack from many submarines coming from Algeciras, the Italian, los submarinos pequeños?
No, venían mucho, pero casi no hacían nada. Allá escapando para arriba otra vez.
Sí, ¿no?
Sí. Uno de los barcos le metieron un torpedo, pero los demás ya se acabaron, porque ya estaban los espías ingleses, estaban en Algeciras también.
Ah, ya.
Hablando aquí yo, haciendo que ha visto por rato, cuando se tiró aquí un aparato, porque ellos estaban en el Signa Hill, en lo alto del monte, y nosotros estábamos bajo. Entonces en aquel día que yo lo conté aquí, estaba aquí rellenado, el acorazado inglés rellenado en el muelle. Tocó la sirena y empezó a venir el aparato y comenzó era de día, comenzó los cañones a disparar. Pero parece ser que el aeroplano, ya como era en altura, ya el rellenado perdió la visibilidad para verlo, para disparar. Y yo creo, pues mi opinión, como los Signa estaba arriba del monte, yo creo que el GDF aquel entonces fue el que tiró el aparato abajo.
Sí, sí, nos lo vieron.
¿Usted no lo cree que así?
Sí,
yo creo que era así.
Ahora, something else you had to do when you were not manning your guns was help with tunneling and the construction of the airport, the airfields.
Yes. There was a lot to be done by way of working, fatigue parties. And we all used to take a hand in this. We all used to go out. I reached the rank of Lance Bombardier, which was a very powerful rank, and I must say, I've never had it so bad in command as I've since got up to a higher echelon. And I can assure you that was the most difficult time I've ever had in command. But anyway, that's another story. But we used to take fatigue parties to the tunnels to muck out the spoil that had been blown up, and he used to throw it out of the entrance to the tunnel. And this was going on right through the night. I mean, from all units on the rock, we were supplying fatigue parties to do the mucking out. Yeah. And that stuff used to go, some of it used to be taken down and do filling up in the airport.
You see, we had 3 watches, one on duty, one reserve, and one off. Yeah. And that's the way it worked, you see. So the one off, you were free, but the reserve, as Jonas said, we went to a fatigue party. Anything that had to be done, we had to do it.
Now, as young lads, was it exciting to see so many ships in the bay and then later so many aeroplanes on the airfield?
Well, it was very exciting not to see very many women.
You remember, before the Normandy landing, we were all wondering what's going to happen because we saw so many planes, so many ships coming in, and we didn't know what was happening. Yeah. On the radio, that it was a normal landing. Yeah. I remember because I was we were living, all the sergeant had a little decent house, we were living there. And of course we all very eager to listen to the radio, to see what's going to happen.
I mean, what was it like? ¿Cómo era la vida viviendo aquí durante? ¿Era dura o?
Era dura.
¿Cómo era la vida aquí, viviendo aquí durante la guerra?
La vida aquí.
¿Era dura, buena?
Mucha gente, vamos, se recogían temprano porque había muchos militares bebidos, no comprende, fuera, pero vámonos. Aquí yo que sepa, no pasó nunca nada, ¿verdad? No vimos nada de pasar ni nada, la gente, porque había poca gente, la mayoría de la gente estaba en Madeira, en Jamaica, en Inglaterra, todos esos sitios, pues había contado lo que habían aquí.
For the question of housewife, we used to have the Spanish lady coming over to work, and I myself in my house had one, but of course we had a curfew, and everybody had to be in by 11 o'clock. And of course, the only people that were allowed out, every day they issue a password. And if the police will stop you, if you didn't know the password, you were just inside.
And obviously food was rationed.
But we had, I mean, the services were well fed. I mean, I must say that we had no difficulty in that respect. Right. In fact, that was plentiful. What was being said before, we had 30,000 troops, I mean in terms of Navy and Air Force and everything else, in Gibraltar. And there was about, as permanent resident women, there were two sections of Wrens. I think in the whole, it was about 40 or 50 of them at the most. And you can imagine. But apart from that, you had these girls who used to come in and they used to work in Gibraltar in all spheres and shops and everything else, which is quite active, and they used to have to go back at night. So that it was pretty hard going.
Yo
me acuerdo, por ejemplo, que cuando lo evacuaron aquí en el Mohamed Ali Kibir, en el barco ese marroquí que venía aquí al Camba, a evacuar a la gente aquí, se llevaron a Casablanca. Después tuvo un tiempo en Casablanca y vinieron para esta libertad. Y era cuando se la llevaron en convoy para Inglaterra. Sí. Y yo me acuerdo que si era descansar mi madre en el barco, lo decía el capitán, que nadie tirara agua al agua, por si algún submarino estaba, esto es la advertencia que tenían la gente que iban en los barcos. No fueron, porque como estos alemanes tiran submarinos por todos lados, sí. Y todo era eso, era así que por lo menos de cerca 15 o 16 barcos mercantes, nunca se llevaba la familia.
Bueno,
para Inglaterra.
My mother went to Jamaica. My mother went to Jamaica. And they were put in a camp there. And she came back, of course. But what happened is some of the families, some of the men who were left behind, joined together and they lived in a house. For example, my 2 cousins, they got together because some of the houses were commandeered by the army to visit the soldiers that were here. And because it was a lot of people joined together, lived in a house. right? Two brothers with two captains there.
Yeah. That's how they joined.
And of course, what happened is that if you were caught there after 11, you have to stay there.
But was there a real fear in Gibraltar that Franco would let the Germans through Spain? Really?
To be quite honest with you, I mean, I remember at Signal Hill listening to the wireless, which we could hear, and that was definitely on the cards. You could feel that was the panic of getting the defences up, you know, digging all this tunneling, to try and get it done in time, because it looked very much. The Germans had reached the frontier with the Pyrenees, and they were. At the time, everybody said, well, it'll come, the next move is right down here.
I had the tour of in La Linea, and what the Germans built there was really, they had everything. And I remember I was told that the German officer was billeted in one of the house, and he used to go up to the terrace, and from there he used to see maneuvers for Gibraltar.
Yo creo, por ejemplo, no sé si era después de la guerra o antes de la guerra, cuando cogieron de un submarino alemán prisionero a la marina, que estaban parando allí en el quarry. Y salían, por ejemplo, ellos salían dos más, de ahí hasta al Piccadilly, por ejemplo. Y ahí se tienen que volver para atrás, porque no podía ir ninguno más. Pero los italianos que tenían aquí presos podían ir por todos lados, porque yo incluso me acuerdo que había un italiano chico al final de la guerra que cantaba la serenata en italiano, que era maravilloso, toda la gente mirándolo por las ventanas escuchándolo de cantar, pero los alemanes nada más que venían de allí con los gorros hasta el Piccadilly y volvían para atrás, no podían ir ninguno más, pero los italianos estaban por todos lados, no me acuerdo. Yo me acuerdo de ese maestro que cantaba unas canciones, de la melodía que tiene los italianos, lo bien que canta. La gente a veces se tomaba por la ventana y escuchaba de cantar, pero bien que cantaba.
They were billeted in detention barracks that way. They kept.
Right. These were the prisoners of war.
Yeah, they were there, yeah. Which later became the detention for anybody who misbehaved himself and gave detention. They were sent to detention there.
With proud thanksgiving, a mother for her children, England mourns for her dead across the sea. Flesh of her flesh they were, spirit of her spirit, fallen in the cause of the free. Solemn the drums thrill. Death, august and royal, sings sorrow up into immortal spheres. There is music in the midst of desolation, and a glory that shines upon our tears. They went with their songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncountered. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning we will remember them. They mingle not with their laughing comrades again. They sit no more at familiar tables of home. They have no lot in our labour of the daytime. They sleep beyond England's foam.